Hey everybody, video here for you today. This is by request. We're going to stick on the ancient America theme for at least one more video. I've had a lot of messages on this since I uploaded the videos from Ohio locating the largest stone pyramid mound north of Mexico and the lost history of Ohio, the giants of Tiny Homer. Many messages about other places in Ohio. Some of them I covered, some I have not. I also want to thank Steve, the property owner, for confirming the existence of that stone pyramid ruins on his property. He said he doesn't want anybody up there snooping around, and I fully understand. But he seems interested in what's on his property, and he says they are best seen in February after the snow and all the vegetation's kind of died away. So he seems interested, so I was really glad to hear that. Now you can tell here on my map, I've done plenty of stories from Ohio, but I still have a list, literally over a dozen places I still want to talk about, and I'm still getting notified about places I've never even heard about still. So ancient America is just a vast expanse of ancient ruins here, but we are going down to Circleville, Ohio today. There are so many ancient places in Ohio: Marietta, Portsmouth, Chillicothe, the famous Newark earthworks, Fort Ancient. The state is just full of them, but what existed here once, pretty cool. Today, totally lost to history, but it was really what the city was based around right down here. Here is a very early map of the city. There was a large circular earthwork here with a ditch, kind of a classic henge if you ask me. Also a square enclosure here, had some gates on it here. But if we go back over to Google Earth here, we know the ancient earthworks existed right down here. And at this intersection right here, there was a mound right in the middle of it all. The center of the circular earthwork was on Main Street and Court Street right here at this intersection, but the ruins probably extended all the way over through this whole area here. Here's a map of the site done in the 1700s. Circular enclosure, double ditched. The square enclosure, 7 of the 8 mounds denoted. The large mound in the center of the circle is not shown on this map, but this turned out to be a pretty good depiction of what existed here a long time ago. Here's a map of Circleville in 1836, and by this time, the large square earthwork had been totally removed. But in the early days of the city, they actually built circular streets, kind of in the fashion of that large circular earthwork right here. Here's an article written about 9 years ago for Ohio archaeologists. This is written by Gerald Anderson, and he says, "It is time to restore the Circleville earthwork to its former vaunted stature. Time to undo the damage done to the reputation of this remarkable earthwork by no other than E.G. Squire and E. Davis. These two, in their epical 1848 work, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, barely mention the Circleville earthwork. They did so almost as an afterthought in their description of the Frankfurt works, and that, I might have to put that one on my list. That name rings a bell there, the Frankfurt works. Now here is what Squire and Davis wrote about 170 years ago. The combination of the great circle and square in this work, and they are referring to the Frankfurt work, is identical with which exists in the celebrated Circleville work, which work may be observed is no more remarkable than others, and owes its celebrity entirely to the fact that it has been several times described with some minuteness. Its dimensions were considerably less than those analogous structures already described. The sides of the square measured not far from 900 feet in length, and the diameter of the circle was a little more than 1,000 feet. The work was peculiar in having a double embankment constituting the circle. It is now almost entirely destroyed. So a double embankment, that reminds me of stuff you see over in the UK all the time, classic henges. But it says, why such a demeaning attitude? Squire and Davis gave us a good hint when they wrote, owes its celebrity entirely to the fact that it has been several times described with some minuteness. They might have added that it had been described earlier and very well by Caleb Atwater of Circleville, Ohio. But they just kind of had a demeaning attitude describing these ancient ruins. And some of them, it's really strange, and especially that stone pyramid that was removed. I went over that in the first video I did on that lost pyramid. Seems to me, after looking at Squire and Davis's reports for quite a while now, they were writing with some sort of agenda. Their publication, The Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley, was published by the Smithsonian Institution. Apparently, they wanted to be the only source of this information. I will leave this link below if you want to read everything that is inside of here, but it says, The ditch or trench is about 20 feet wide and 15 feet deep, but he goes over some details here, some guesses of what he thinks these were built for. But it says, Figure 1, the 1772 Jones-Irwin map of the Circleville work, and that's one of the earliest maps I've seen in one of these enclosures. It says the circular ditch was emphasized, as it should have been, since it was very deep at 15 feet, while the walls on each side were only about 4 feet high. The square is boldly mapped, and all 8 openings are shown with 7 of the interior mounds. It is worth noting that the mounds are not shown in the center of the circle, in the square at the opening to the circle, nor to the southwest as they are in later maps. The author of this map firmly relates that his mapping of the entranceway from the circle to the square is exact. This survey is thought to have been a horseback survey, but the ratio of the circle diameter to the length of the square sides is very close to that measured by later surveyors. Here is Caleb Atwater's map of the Circleville work published in 1820 in his book, Antiquities Discovered in the Western States. His map is highly detailed and several of the salient features are described fully in his text of the book. Atwater showed 2 elongated mounds serving as walls along the avenue connecting the circle and the square parts of the work, rather than the low walls utilized in many of the other conjoined earthworks in Ohio. Here is a good description of the site here on this map. The mounds inside of the square enclosure, one pretty good sized mound right outside of it here. Then the large circular enclosure with the mound right in the middle. This was over 1,000 feet in diameter, and I can't even imagine how many thousands of man hours it would have taken to build. This was 20 feet across and 15 feet deep. That's over 4 meters deep and over 5 meters across, if I'm doing my math correctly. But this is a good description of what is here at the site on this map right here. It says a map of the Circleville work as it should have been presented in the Squire and Davis famous 1847 book, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley. They were noticeably dismissive of the Circleville earthwork and furnished a minuscule map of it. The Circleville earthwork should have been more prominently featured by them, since it was one of the most important geometric earthworks in Ohio. Now, trying to put together all I have learned on ancient America and Squire and Davis, well, it seems they were writing with agenda and bias, and they wanted to be the only source of this information for whatever reason here, but this is a pretty good map. In this large circular earthwork, I just couldn't help but notice that it's just about the exact same size as the Great Circle, which still exists here in Newark, right here. I'm not sure of any alignment down there at the Circleville Earthworks, since those were pretty much all removed. But since it's so similar to the Newark Earthworks here, you got to assume that they were watching the moon here. The moon was very important to cultures because it showed not only at night, but during the day also. There's also the eerie similarity to ruins found in the Amazon down in South America. Here is something that is very reminiscent of what we see at Newark and other places in Ohio today, down in the Amazon jungle when it was cleared of trees. The Circleville earthworks were probably built the same time as the Newark ones here, about 2,000 years ago. That's a rough estimate, but there is the large circle still remaining in Newark. And then right down here is that earthwork that is similar to the one that I just showed you in the Amazon. Circle attached to kind of an octagon shaped one here. But we got to assume these were built roughly the same time. I want to thank my viewers for sending in multiple requests for this story here. I was only generally familiar with it, but I learned a lot doing this video. That's what it's all about. That is a video on some totally lost history here from Circleville. No evidence of these ruins remains in the city, I don't think. If somebody knows different, please state it in the comment section, but you can put Circleville out there along with Newark, Marietta, Portsmouth, a whole bunch of ancient ruins, Chillicothe in Ohio. I could go on and on here, but I'm going to end it here. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.